What is up, SharkNation? This is our second podcast of the day. We're pushing through this. We're having a great time today, this morning. I'm live from Greystone Studios. Mark is again in Sallynoggin / Glenageary. We're never quite sure. Somewhere on the border in the grey area, as he said earlier on today. We're with Shane Monahan, founder and CEO of Limor app, and possibly the creator of the best tagline ever for a technology company. Join the conspiracy. We're going to go into all of that and where that comes from, but really exciting. So Shane, like I said, is the founder of it's an app for social audio. Is probably the best way to talk about that. Glad to have you on the show here. This is a really interesting one for us because we're the podcast. We usually have people on who are business people. We just had an artist on there as well, so there's a big mix. But this is the first time that we talked about like a tech founder, you know. So I work in technology. I work for HubSpot, and so I work with a lot of kind of startups, and that space as well, because we're using our software to, you know, get their brand out there, get their, you know, their you know, just getting them out there, you know. So it's very interesting to me. So if you would explain to those people who aren't users, I've got your app on my phone here, but for those of you who aren't users, what's the app all about?
Firstly, thanks for having me here, guys. It's brilliant, and this is one really cool thing that's coming out of this is the amount of people I'm getting to talk to that I have never actually met before on podcasts and this side of it, which is really good. And thank you again for saying it's a social audio app. The amount of people I have to say, oh, it's a podcast app, and I said, well, not really. No, it does do podcasting, but it's social audio. So basically, Limor, the ultimate company vision, what Limor is about is, you know, what YouTube did for video and Instagram did for images, Limor does for voice. So we instantly removed the barriers of entry for audio and podcast creation for the world. And we solved three major problems. One, as I said, that barrier to entry is solved. Second problem we solve is a major one for podcasters. I'm sure you guys will know about this, is the metrics, the data, and the analytics for podcasting is atrocious.
Terrible.
We solve that problem because we centralize everything in a similar way to Instagram and Twitter. And the third one, and the most important one, and comes back to my point about social audio, is we solve a problem that most podcasters don't even realize they have yet, which is interaction. Because podcasting is a monologue. You know, you speak, your audience listen, end of. Whereas Limor breaks down those walls, that fourth wall, and you can now talk directly to your listeners, and they can talk directly to you, and you can spark a whole conversation off the back of your original piece of audio content. And that's what's really exciting about it. And then, of course, what we're building Limor for, and this is what I say, like it's a social audio platform, but it's a voice platform. We're not building Limor for today. We're building Limor for where the world is going to be in a year, 2 years from time, where technology is going, and everything is going to be based in voice. Everything's going to be voice activated. And the statistics of the market show that. The statistics of technology show that. And ultimately, with Limor, you'll be able to do everything via voice. So, like, you can go into the kitchen and you're cooking your breakfast, go, Limor, record. Hey, everyone, we've got a really cool podcast coming up later on with Bono. I see you're a fan. He's a picture on the wall behind you.
Actually, Mark's painting he gave to me as a gift.
Pretty cool. But you can say, and check out the full podcast later on at 3:00. Share. And because it's a centralized platform, you'll have followers on Limor. So say you have 100,000 followers, they'll instantly be able to listen to that, instantly be able to interact with it, and instantly be able to talk to you. And then you bring that to the next step again, where the next evolution of e-commerce is v-commerce, voice commerce, buying with your voice. And that's what we're building Limor for. So in the same way that Instagram allows people to monetize their images and their text, we're going to be allowing people to build a sonic identity, build a profile around their voice, and monetize that. Which is just and it's far more effective as well. So I'll be hitting you with some statistics along the way here, but podcast consumers are 179% more likely to purchase than any other form of consumer, which is incredible.
But it's an incredible thing. But if you think about it, you're getting like ear space for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. You know, that's an impossible thing to buy. Do you know that kind of way? So it's a shocking thing, but it makes sense to me. You know.
Yeah, and on that, the attention span. You know, like video, average attention span for video is 8 to 10 seconds. You know, and as you say, how are you meant to get across who you are as a person, who you are as a business, who you are as an organization in 8 to 10 seconds? It's impossible. It really is, you know? Yeah. The average for a podcast is 30 to 34 minutes, you know? So it's just, in that time, you, as I said, you can build up a relationship with the audience, and the audience can build a relationship with you as the host. You build a relationship with someone, become a friend in your mind with that person, and what you do with your friends, generally you trust them. And if your friend says, Jesus, did you see those pictures from that guy? The 3 splits on the rugby paintings. Really? Yeah, check it out. They're class. Okay, I will. Or get that. Did you try that new coffee in Starbucks, or that local place down in Bray, or whatever the case may be? They're more likely to do it. Yeah. And that's another reason why everyone is jumping on the bandwagon of podcasts now, businesses and stuff, because holy shit, these are effective. Yeah. And the opportunity, it's virgin territory, because there's over 1 billion people on Instagram. Everyone's doing the same thing. It's completely saturated. How do you stand out? Podcasts on iTunes. There's about podcast shows now, not episodes. There's lots of episodes, but shows, there's about 850,000, which is nothing. Yeah. You know? So there's all these little nuggets, and we're connecting all the dots with Limor and making it easy. And that's what the name is, where the name derives from. So the name Limor, Limor, stands for less is more. And that comes from the original conversation I had with my dad, how I came up with the idea for. Basically, back in 2014, December 2014, I was having a chat with him, and he's in a voluntary group from Drogheda. He's in a voluntary group in Drogheda, and they did all this great work, but no one knew about it, you know, and they were getting frustrated, and they would write letters to the newspaper and be gone after 24 hours if they even got it published. 9 out of 10 times it doesn't get published. And he said, Shane, is there anything we can do? And I said, yes, Dad, you make a podcast. And he asked me, this is 2014, remember, what's the podcast? Yeah. So, and at the time, most people didn't know what podcasts were. And so I showed him some examples. You know, he dove into it, and he says, Shane, this is absolutely incredible. You know, how do I do it? And I said, well, Dad, to do it, you're going to need headphones, microphone, recording device, laptop, desktop, editing software, learn how to produce, set up your social media account, set up a website, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Shane, I'll just stop you there. I'm not interested. So he went from amazing idea to not interested in seconds, literally seconds. And I was like, wow. Imagine there was an app for someone like my dad, or anyone wanted to say what you want to say, hit share, and you're done. Removes those barriers to entry, and the term less is more came to mind. And that's where the name came as an acronym. And and so that's the philosophy behind it. In a similar way to Instagram, you know, 9 out of 10 people don't want to be professional photographers. They just want to share their pictures. Yeah. And the same thing with podcasting. 9 out of 10 people don't want to be traditional podcasters. They don't want to be the next Joe Rogan, but they'd love to share their voice or get involved in voice. That's what we allow. So we are really going after the 9 out of 10 rather than the 1 out of 10. Like you guys, the high level production. You can still do what you do as well though, because you can still do your pre-recorded and upload it to your profile, but then you can complement it with on-the-go audio, spur of the moment. Like, because you guys know the amount of work that goes into it. And you're getting into a rhythm now because there's 2 of you in it, you're enjoying it, you have a system. But most people, you know, they don't have that time or that energy that you guys have, because it takes a lot of energy and passion to do it. So we make it easier for people.
It's an interesting thing as well, because the first month when we were trying to figure out the software, what we need, it was a lot of hours put in there, and I, you know, like I said, I'm very passionate about this. I love doing it. It's something I look forward to all week. And then, but I would say if someone like, it would have been easy enough just to say, you know what, Mark, check this, like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm glad we kept going. We've got a bit of a system, like you said now. But I love the idea of being able to get that maybe more raw audio out to people, saying, you know, during the week, if we knew that you were coming on, get people, you know, to think that's coming up and all that type of stuff. So it is interesting as well, because I remember a couple of years ago, I've never really minded putting using voice stuff, right? But remember when WhatsApp, you could send voice messages to people? That was a new thing. That was only a few years ago. And I would do that, and people thought that they'd always text me back. And I'm like, why don't it just be easier just to do the voice thing? Do you know what I mean? So this is something that's evolving. Now Mark's got many long voicemails from me. At the beginning of the podcast, probably about software and stuff like that. A lot of profanities, all that type of stuff. But I think it's a like I said, the voice thing is going to be a growth mark, because when you put things out there, you're more involved with what's happening. You know, it's a different thing than just a Twitter text. It's way more real, I think. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think, like, the biggest platform most people have, social media platform for any brand or podcast, whatever it is Instagram, or maybe Twitter. And I run our Instagram, and I just don't think it's not directly transferable what we're doing. I'm finding it hard to capture what we're doing in images and text and stories. It doesn't really work. So I think it's an incredible technology and idea that Limor has, and certainly there's such a need for it. So even what the idea that Luke's doing an Ironman, so well he's signed up to it, and he wanted to kind of give some updates as he goes, but having to do a whole podcast every week about it isn't realistic. So that's perfect for that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely ideal, and that's exactly it. And it's the last on the pantheon of the gods of social media. You know, there's no voice foundational social media platform, and that's what we are. And we're not trying to replace anything, we're trying to complement it, because, you know, there's a time where you want to watch TV and movies, and there's a time when you want to listen to music, and there's a time when you want to listen to podcasts, you know. And there's different areas, like, as you know, you consume that, like podcasting, huge majority of it is either consumed when you're doing stuff like cooking breakfast in the home, or working out, or driving from A to B when you're in that car, which is why I think the stats are around 20 to 30 minutes, because that's an average of a travel time for people, you know. So, but like you say, that's what we say. One of the hardest people, or some of the hardest people I have to convince, and I've got to the stage where I don't try and convince people anymore, you know, is actual traditional podcasters. And we use that term traditional podcasters because that's the only way people know how to get involved in this era of audio, you know, because it's very easy to consume audio. You can do it in almost every way, you know, devices, home, smart homes, you know, you name it, earpods or AirPods. But to actually become a content creator and share your voice is very difficult. And the only way that you can do it is podcasting. But podcasting now is the exact same as it was 15 years ago. The whole process, there's no difference. Yeah. So what form of media or technology has not evolved in 15 years? None. And all the problems associated with podcasts 15 years ago that stopped them from growing in the first place are still there. And that's those things we mentioned, barrier to entry. And you guys got over that sticking point where
it took two of us. Yeah, it took two of us to get over it. Yeah.
And once you get over it, great. But most people don't. Then the metrics, as I said, you know, like anything to succeed in this world, most things, it revolves around money, unfortunately. And you need to be able to monetize it. And because the metrics and analytics and data are so bad, like in terms of how you share your podcast, I need to grow an audience. I need to share it to as many platforms as I can to get as many listeners as I can. Yeah. Problem is, you share your audience to all those platforms, you fragment your audience, you lose the detail. But every platform has a different metric for what a download is or what a listen is, or, you know, and it's guesswork ultimately. You know, we had 100,000 downloads, deadly. So what's that mean? We had 100,000 downloads, you know? So
compared to a lot of the marketing, like I said before the podcast, I sell marketing software, so we can go super detailed on metrics on everything else, but it's kind of like a black box with the podcast stuff. We, like I said, it's just blunt. It's one number, and then like I know we were at one stage we were looking at the rankings and stuff, and then we were doing well there, and then it falls off, and you're like, but the downloads are going up. How does this work? Do you know what I mean? So some of those, it's confusing, to be honest. But when you so this is something, Shane, this is something really interesting to me as well, because there's so many people out there, me and Mark included, who are saying, talking to our family members or something, and something comes up like that, and you have an idea for an app or a platform, and then that just kind of, that idea withers away until somebody else just in America just does that. So what's the next step? You have the conversation with your dad, you start going on the internet scene. Was there anything like this, doing some market research? What's the next step there?
So the next step, so that was December 2014, and I was still a professional rugby player at this stage, so I was playing in Gloucester in England at the time. And when I wasn't playing rugby, I'd be doing like Mark there, I paint portraits. I enjoy painting, and when I wasn't playing with rugby players, I was painting rugby players. I'd say, here, sign that for me, will you? So and that's how I got into podcasting in the first place. It was my brother actually introduced me to, and believe it or not, Brian Rose of London Real. He's been in the news recently for controversial reasons. Getting deplatformed, yeah, and which I think is very unfair, to be honest with you. And that's a story for another day, maybe another podcast. But it was London Real, and this is back in 2012, just around the time he kind of started, maybe a year after he started. And I would listen to the podcast while I painted. And again, you can't really paint properly with a TV screen on in front of you and you're watching Braveheart or something,
Yeah.
It doesn't work. But you can have music or podcasts in the background and you still take it in. That's the amazing thing about voice. It's crazy how it works. So that's how I started listening to podcasts. And another major one that I listened to was Stone Cold Steve Austin. His
the Smoking Bones Ranch or something, like that.
Broken Skull Ranch. Yeah, no, that was the show. What's the name? I can't think of the name of the podcast show. But I started listening to
Bottom Line, is it?
Sorry,
the Bottom Line. Well, it should be.
No, it's not the Bottom Line. This is annoying me. I'm going to look it up now. We're here to get it. But I listened to that from literally episode 1. When he started, and I listened to nonstop for like 2 or 3 years while I was doing the painting. That's how I got started listening to podcasts. When I got the idea, and I took this idea back with me, because Christmas time, when you're a rugby player, you get 24 hours, 48 hours off at Christmas time, depending on whether you play before Christmas or after, because you're either playing, Christmas Eve or Stevens's Day, okay. which is great for time with the family. And so I commuted back home to Ireland, 24 hours at home, then back in the plane and back to England. And I started diving into the listening consumption of podcasts. And I also have a degree in product design,
okay,
in DIT, which lends itself very well to this. So I understand the life cycle of a product, the design process, the engineering, the marketing, business, all that carry on, And I looked at the market and researched products that were out there and the direction people were going, just statistics around the market. And there was very few statistics really on podcasts. I'm looking, well, as you said, the listeners and, what are the average times and blah, blah, blah. And there was none really of any really good detail. And any that were there were based in America. So there was nothing from Ireland, UK, Europe, nothing. And I said, wow, this really is, for as big a market as I thought it was actually very small, and there was massive opportunity, So I said, well, I've got an idea where it's completely different to what people are thinking about. And everyone was going down to traditional podcast line. Like you may see, like the closest comparable product there was to us was Anchor, right? But Anchor are a traditional podcast app. They want people to do what you guys are doing, which is high level production, episodic, and feed that monster that is iTunes and Spotify and that format of thinking. And every podcast platform that's out there is the same. They're mainly hosts, you know, like Luminary and they're massive. They're like Netflix for podcasts, and that's what they're going after. And that's ultimately what Spotify wants to be, is a Netflix for podcasting. That's not what I want to be, you know? And that's the big difference. And I said the social audio aspect is a huge difference. So I had that, and I had about a year of doing this research. And it was about a year after that, November 2015, when I ultimately, I was in Munster at this stage, and I finished with Munster. And that's when I had my first conversations about raising money, where I said, right, I have this idea. I've been talking about it. I've done a lot of research. I'm coming to the end of my journey as a professional player. And this is my new focus and my new passion and my new goal that I have 100% belief in, that this thing is something special. It's something big that I can put all my energy into. And I had a little spade. I had about 6 months doing MMA and a thing called Wimp to Warrior. And that was kind of like my transition from a professional athlete into a civilian, but training 6 days a week to do it, you know?
Yeah. Not much of a retirement.
Yeah, and that was a great experience. But the weekend of my fight, or the week of my fight, I think was in the August, the prototype for Limor was ready.
Cool.
So that was kind of like, there was a lot to do with timing and synergies and just I don't know, meant to be, or whatever the case may be. But that was when I said, right, I'm not going back to rugby, because I still had an agent looking for contracts, but my passion wasn't there anymore. And I hung up the boots and I went full-time vision and emotion and everything into Limor. And it's like any of the startup journeys, you know, it was lots of highs and lows and frustrations, and but we are where we are now, and we're in the best position the company's ever been in. And you know, I've been on that soapbox for 5 years telling people voice is the future.
Yeah.
And podcasting is huge. It's going to be massive. And social audio is the future, and voice commerce is the future. And you have people looking at you like you've two heads. And it's like, it's all about video. And, you know, sure, why can't you do that? I have a voice recorder on my phone, or a Zoom. Why would I bother doing something like that? And then, as I said, the traditional podcasters, they're like, no, that's not podcasting. This is podcasting. We know what podcasting is, you know. And it's kind of, I compare it to when social media first came along. You did traditional media are going, we are the media. This social media stuff is a joke. We have no interest in that. And 10, 15 years later, where are they now? You know?
And everybody used to treat it as a joke. I remember when Bebo came out, we used to post up horrific things that you would be crucified for now. You're like trying to make our friends laugh. You know, it wasn't serious. It wasn't real life. Like we were, I guess Bebo was what, 2007 or so. I don't know.
Great platform.
It was kind of like, you know, probably the most fun I've ever had on social media before that. But it was, like you're saying, it became serious, became mainstream now, and your online persona merged somewhere along the way with your real life persona, and now, you know, you got to be careful about what you put out there, because it's on the record now, too. But the interesting thing here as well is it might have been a great thing to have this type of passion to I think a lot of the sports people, I've read a lot of sports books and stuff like that, and that's always an interesting chapter when they retire the first year or something after that, because they don't really know what they want to get into broadcasting. They want to do a few things, but it's not as passionate. So it's pretty cool that you had something like that you could really sink your teeth into. And with the prototype, was the prototype what you went with to investors, or what do you do? You've got something that's functional now. You can show people what it is. What do you do with it then?
See, that's the difficult thing, because I had this ultimate vision in my mind, which we still haven't achieved yet, you know, because it takes money and technology and all that. But I had this vision and schematics and did designs and, you know, on paper essentially. And I knew in order to make this paper design a reality, I needed cash to begin with. So I started the process through the start of the business network, my business network, and people that can mentor you and that, because I had a lot of experience in rugby, and professional rugby in particular. It teaches you a lot of skills. You don't realize it at the time, but you're going through the fires of a very, very difficult industry. You work your ass off. You're surrounded by high performance people all the time. It can be a very highly stressful environment. But again, you don't realize this because it's just your environment, it's your life. But when you get out into the civilian life, as it were, it's like you're kind of like, Jesus, this isn't that difficult at all, because as well as the mental stress that you do get in business and that, you don't have the physical toll on your body also. So you take that away, and it becomes really enjoyable. I was talking to some guys, some of my mates, one of them still playing rugby guys last night. And that, as you said, one of the big worries they have is, oh shit, you hear all these stories about guys not being able to cope after they retire, and it's this kind of, oh Jesus, what am I getting myself into? And they hang on nearly too long in the rugby because they're not sure what they're going to do after. And then, like the two guys in particular, once they stop, they're kind of like, geez, this is great. I don't have any pressure, and I don't have to be flogged, and I don't have to deal with politics, and I don't have to deal with, coaches that don't like me, or, all this shit, and non-selection or injury, and Jesus, and it's a massive weight off their shoulders.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. Listen, don't get me wrong. I love when things go well in rugby. It's amazing. It's fantastic. But the majority of the time, it's not like that. It's very, very difficult and stressful. And actually, coming back to our friend Brian Rose, I met Brian. My brother's met him a few times. I met him at the early doors of Limor when I was looking for this network, to build this the network. And I was raising funds, and I was going to people with this pitch, this idea I'd been on for an hour, on my vision of where I wanted to go. And ultimately, I raised money off that pitch, and the passion, the belief, the emotion. I think the fact, the definitely being a professional rugby player opened the door where people gave me time to listen.
Yeah.
But if anyone's raising money, they'll tell you that's not enough to get people to put their hands in their pocket and give you cash.
That's a different thing.
And so ultimately it comes down to, and a lot of the guys, they said it was, genuine belief, passion, great idea. There was signs in the market. Again, this is 5 years ago at the start of it, or maybe 4 years ago for the money raise. And there were signs on the market that there was a potential opportunity, and guys that are risk takers, and they have a bit of change that they can spare, and believed in me. But they say, listen, we believed in you as a person.
Yeah.
And you've already proven it in your previous career. You played at the highest level, or almost the highest level, and that's not easy to do. And it shows you have the commitment and the work rate. And if you can combine that commitment, work rate, passion with a really good idea and in an opportune market, then it's a good risk to take, because all the guys at that beginning, especially in tech and something like that, a lot of them wrote the check expecting not to get any money back. It's like putting it on a horse in Cheltenham, they're kind of like, it has a good chance, let's see what happens, and we'll go along for the ride. So you have that side of it as well. So there's a lot of that, and every story is different of how people raise money, and what's been very difficult for me as well on the sale of this is pre-revenue.
Yeah.
And ultimately it comes down to how much money does it make, and for the bigger chunks of change. And like, we're not making money yet, because the product hasn't been fully launched yet. Like where we are 5 years later, the product hasn't been hard launched, and as I said, it's getting the initial prototype. It was always right, we need the prototype to get the bigger money, to see a touch and feel and see and all that. And There's always another step. And I won't say it's never easy raising money, but it's easier getting the smaller checks to get you to that stage. But then you get to the bigger checks where the likes of those questions, where's the revenue? And I said, well, it's not there. We need your money to be able to start revenue generation. You know, so you're caught between two stools. It's a very difficult period to be in. And again, you're looking for the people that believe in you to allow you to start that process.
What do you think about? There's a few places around the country that are kind of like startup hubs or incubators, accelerators, whatever you want to call them, where it's like a group of startup companies working in the same space under the same kind of umbrella. Do you think that there's much benefit in that, or are you better off being kind of independent? What's your thoughts there?
My thoughts on that one, I personally never wanted to go down that route. I never wanted to. There's lots of benefit in it, definitely. If one, you don't have a network, they're very good to start expanding your network. Without a doubt, similar-minded people, you can bounce ideas, that side of stuff. But for me, I had just come out, and a big reason why I got out of rugby was I didn't retire because of my injuries, or it was mentally. Last year in particular, I was stuck in a contract with a coaching team that didn't like me, and they dictated my future. That's one of the most difficult things about sport. And I was stuck in it. It was very frustrating, emotionally draining. I wasn't the master of my own destiny.
Okay.
And when I came out of it, my vision about these hubs, and because you're being told what to do, you know, being go right, in order to be a successful entrepreneur in tech, this is how you do it. Bang, bang, bang.
Type mentality kind of.
Yeah. And just where my mindset was at the time, or me as a personality, I says, I'm not going that, I'm going my own path. Whether it was the right or the wrong thing to do, I don't know, but that was who I was. And I said, I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm my own boss, you know, and I'm building a team, you know, so that's the route I went. And it may have gone quicker a different way. I don't know. We'll never know. But one thing I know is I have built an incredible network in the last 5 years by doing it the way I've done it. And I haven't had certain, as I said, I've had a few people now kind of trying to, would you not go down a traditional podcast route? Would you not go this route? Would you not do that? Would you not? You get there quicker, and I'm being very strong on sticking to my idea and say, no, this is the way we're going. And I've been involved in other things that are similar. I've done courses, you know, with the local enterprise office, and don't get me wrong, they're very supportive, and that, but vision can be limited. And there's a lot of the time, again, the structure. This is how you do it. A, B, C, tick the box, tick the box, tick the box. And that's what it takes to succeed. And it goes, that might be what it takes to succeed for a traditional, you know, retail business or a coffee factory or a brewery, but not a company that wants to be a world-changing billion-dollar unicorn business that's global, where it has the potential to be massive scale. This is the way you need to think. And I think for a lot of people, they box themselves in, you know, on vision, and it's like, that's a bit, you don't think that's a bit mad? You're going, get a bit ahead of yourself. You're getting, it's like
very Irish.
Well, it is. Yeah.
I agree with Shane more about this. Like I said, because I've worked a lot in the Nordics over the last few years. Spent a lot of time in Finland, and they've got so many like these big thinking startups. It's all about kind of not global domination, but, you know, global expansion. Say they've got great companies that are coming out of nowhere, and they're all supported by the government. But the government there is basically writing checks of 50 grand to anyone who has any type of big vision. So you have to go there and say, this is not going to be, like I said, I'm not going to open a shop that sells, you know, artisan beers, which is great, has a place for that. But if we're thinking about investing as a country, as a thing, I think that those vision big ones, they're going to move the dial way more than a few small ones. So it's something that we've talked about in the podcast as well, Shane. In Ireland, I would expect, because we've got so many big tech companies here, that there'd be spin-offs galore that would just be littered with unicorns, like you're saying, you know. But I don't know what it is. Is it just that people are not thinking that? Is it a confidence thing? And
Is it like musicians back in the day having to go to London or having to go to America to make it work? Did you think of, all right, this big thinking where I'm going to go to San Francisco and Silicon Valley?
It was again, it's from, I think for me, my experience in my rugby career, because like the whole way, I had a very successful underage career. You know, I played Leinster, started nearly every game for the Irish underage, and then you hit senior level. And at the time, you know, Brian Driscoll, Gordon Darcy, Shane Horgan, Dennis Hickey, Dermot, everyone, they're all British and Irish Lions, the best in the world, were ahead of you. And opportunity was very scarce. And that momentum you had petered out, not for lack of skill, it was lack of opportunity. And it's like stocks and shares. That's what rugby is, up and down. And when you don't play out of sight, out of mind, and within, I don't know, we won the Grand Slam, 20s Grand Slam, where you're, you know, if you're in England, you're on a senior contract straight away off the back of that. Where I was lucky to get an academy contract off the back of that. It's crazy. And then within 2 years, I was let go from Leinster. I was in Connacht on a development contract for a year. I played maybe 2 or 3 times, and I was written off. I was literally like, good luck, your career's over at 22, 23. And I'm like, excuse my French, fuck that, you know, I'm not finished, and I'm going where I can get opportunity. And I got one opportunity in England, and off the back of that, I was playing in the Premiership a year later.
Perfect.
And built myself back up. And the Irish coach and team are on to me, do you want to play for Ireland? After being told you're not good enough. And it's a similar type thing. It's kind of, the Irish thing is, we don't want you, but we don't want anyone else to have you.
Yeah.
You know? And it's only until you are successful and other people want you that they want to they don't see what they have. I'm just using that that's my experience. And I've seen it over and over and over again. It used to be in Ireland as well, in the rugby in particular. It was kind of shit. If I don't make it in Ireland, I'll never make it anywhere. You know, why would I make it in England in the Premiership if I can't make it here in Leinster? So they give up, you know. And there's so many amazing players that who could have been professional, who didn't because of that. And it's a very similar mindset in business, I think, in those kind of government agencies and stuff. And the risk, there's no risk, you know. They don't want to. The people who are writing the checks don't want to be seeing, oh, geez, you wasted money on that, didn't work out. Whereas in America, there'll be 20, and they go, right, we'll bet on 20, and if one comes, we're delighted because we'll make all the money back, you know. So they didn't. So Stripe is the famous one, isn't it?
Yeah.
They didn't invest in them. You know, it's
crazy. What a missed opportunity that could have been.
Well, it's over and over again, and it comes down to the big thing as well, especially the early stage, coming back to that revenue generation. Like I spoke to some people, and the high performance startup in terms of getting that big chunk of change, and unless you're making a certain criteria turnover a year, they won't even look at you. Even if you have the key to the kingdom, they won't look at you. You know. And like another one, I'm fucking smashing the government here, but they put out a thing during Corona, you know, to help businesses. You know, they're looking for RD&I, research development, you know, Enterprise Ireland, science to help, and they're looking for people with ideas that they can fund. Ideas now, like where I was 4 or 5 years ago, that they can build that will be working in 6 months' time. We are the equivalent, if you want to compare a very cheap analogy, but it is Zoom. Zoom, they've doubled the valuation, how that has changed and helped businesses and all that in the last while. We offer that service instantly. We just can't monetize it yet because we haven't built those features yet. So we were saying, listen, we have a product. We're ready to go. If you help us, we could be up and running in weeks, not 6 months, weeks, to help businesses to grow and make money and all that. They came back to us, oh, you don't meet the criteria, and they blocked it. And I was like, why? And I asked them, why don't we meet the criteria? And they came back as, because you're an existing product already. We're looking for research and development that we can invest and build up. It's insanity because, you know, it's kind of like if it was wartime and you have a factory that you can pivot from making pots and pans into making tanks. And they're looking to and say, oh, no, you can't pivot. We want to build a brand new factory from scratch.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that's happening right now, because I've got one of my friends is a small business owner, and he's got a number of staff, and there was a support that came out from the government during this time, but he couldn't avail of it until he had already depleted all of his savings. So until he's almost insolvent, rather than, it's not sustainable then if he has no money anyway. So do you know what I mean? There's no.
It is, and I'm sure it's very frustrating, because there's some amazing people. There's some of the people in the Loud Enterprise office in particular are brilliant, and they genuinely want to help you, and they see the vision, and they're scratching their heads sometimes as well about it. So it's been one of those things that's been difficult in that regard, and return on investment and risk and stuff like that, where we are in particular, like our product and the market we have, and that's what, like we touched on it with Square One, like they're no fools when it comes to technology and business. They're one of the best in the British Isles and Europe, because of offices in Spain as well, and they've come on board to work with us as our tech partners.
Yeah,
they
because we talked about that just before we hit record. I think they've given you guys some backing just in April, right? So during this crisis, they're investing into that, which is good to see.
Oh yeah, it's huge. And the thing about that, like those guys, they're 80%, over 80% of the publishers in Ireland. They do all Communicorp stuff, they do all Maxim Media, Joe.ie, all that carry on. So they're dealing at a very, very high level when it comes to media and publishers, and they understand that market, and they're really good at it. And Silicon Republic, Business Post, all that side of stuff. And they see what's happening in voice, and they see the opportunity in what we're doing because it's so different. And they're, again, it's like anything, it's risk. Everything is risk, but for them to commit the amount that they have to us, they really believe in it. And it comes down to that belief, as risk. There's risk and belief in everything you do in life, and they are really pivotal in helping us bring in the next evolution of Limor, because the existing product there, Limor 1.1, we that first update with Square One February, and we have a brand new product coming in at the end of the summer, Limor 2.0, which is the first, for me, beginning of that vision, really, for global domination, as you said, the conspiracy.
Yeah. What would be can you tell us the key differences yet in the new one and the old one?
Oh, well, you're going to, like, the first version of 2.0, basically it's going to be the equivalent of a car. So you've a Golf there from 2015 versus a Golf from 2020 is the first part of it. But it will be the first monetization features. So there's going to be different levels of Limor. So there'll be free, entry level, premium, and enterprise. And the big thing we want to do is we want to allow people like yourselves or anyone who gets into voice to be able to monetize their voice instantly as well. To give them a reason to come to Limor to push content, and so it makes sense. And there's different avenues of monetization strategy. And then obviously the metrics and the analytics are going to be at another level again. It's very, very good what we have at the moment. But what's coming is, for likes of, HubSpot and all those organizations, they'll never have had that detailed metrics for voice that we're going to be offering too. And like the enterprise stuff, there's some, for organizational things. Essentially, when you're a newspaper or sporting organization, every player, every journalist can instantly be content creators for you anywhere in the world, because your device is your studio. And it's centralized it all. There's all those kind of stuff. It's very exciting what's coming. And then it's simple, the user interface, and just because there's bits in that original Limor app that are there that are still there from the very first development, and just because you have to prioritize builds for the advancement of the product, but also to show improvement for investors, and you're juggling all these things or spinning all these plates. So to finally be in a position to build that, and as well to what this seed round is about is marketing, because we've never marketed Limor. no one knows about us really.
It's been everywhere for the last few months, so you're doing something right.
Well, everywhere in front of you guys, we've got your attention, which is brilliant. But really, relatively, our marketing spend or marketing campaign hasn't started at all. So when we actually do pull the trigger on that, and people are aware of us, and like yourselves, like you guys reach out, which was amazing to be able to talk to you about it. But I've been getting DMs and LinkedIn's and from all these people in very high positions and media and all this, kind of like, what's going on here? This is really interesting. I came across you here and I saw that, and could you tell me more? And best of luck with it and all that. And it's starting, that momentum shift is starting, and because of Corona, people are more aware of it as well, because they're looking for something in this domain. And the world has changed forever. Bricks and mortar businesses now, if they don't have a digital strategy, they're done. They could get away with not having a digital strategy to this point. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
So
such a big leap on the evolution of tech, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, guys, just from the inside out, we just had one of our biggest months ever in HubSpot, which is against any, like, at the beginning of the month, I was, it was crisis meeting after crisis. We were like everybody in the world, and then this kind of digitizations happening across businesses. What I'm thinking about with the Limor app and the type of information that we can gain from stuff like that, like the stuff that we sell, the enterprise software for the companies who need to do attribution reporting. This could be a whole other channel for them that is untapped from the marketing thing. When you see the interface of any marketing software that enterprises are using, they've got, your traditional media, your conversions on landing pages and all that, email conversions, which is, in trouble. And that's, it's a big part of our business, but it's something that we're thinking every single year that's going down and down, right? I see this as a whole other channel within the attribution calculation. So it's going to be something that will just be like audio, voice, whatever you want to call it, will just be another stack on all those kind of growth reports that we'll be doing for our customers. I don't see a way around it, to be honest.
No, it's I couldn't agree more. And this is, it's a pleasure talking to someone like you guys, because you get it, and that's been one of the most difficult things for me. The frustrating part, people just don't get it, or they don't want to get it, head in the sand kind of stuff. Or problem with a lot of companies with their comms teams or their marketing teams, they're either set in their ways and they don't want to learn, or they have just adapted to Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, and they're like, "Oh, you're telling me I have to do something else? I don't have time for that. Fuck off."
Exactly.
And no, and I say to people whenever I speak to them, I said, whether you use Limor or you don't use Limor, you have to get into voice. It is a need. It's not a want. There's no, in between with this. As you say, it's going to be as technology moves forward, and like the voice economy. Which is your voice commerce, your analytics, your AI, machine learning, all to do with voice, is predicted to be worth $1 trillion by 2025. So,
I'm getting your frustration here as well, because I think the people really haven't got this, really haven't accepted this yet. Because I've got one of my partners, or one of HubSpot partners. They're a consultancy, and they got into podcasting about six months ago. And it's in a different language, so I don't really understand exactly what's going on, but it seems like it's good. It's getting a lot of traction, that type of stuff. But what they do is they have a very specific expertise. Okay, so they talk about that expertise, some subject every Friday, or whatever. It's in the marketing space, in the kind of digital marketing space. So what's happening in their region is that every time somebody searches for that, their podcast is coming up, and it's like an hour of consultancy on that particular thing. How can and none of their competitors are doing that. So if I want to work with Mark, I can now, like, if if I want, Mark's trying to drum up new business, I see that he's has a podcast, I can go and I'll know exactly who Mark is and what he's about. There's 50 hours of content around, you know what I mean? So if you're not doing the voice of stuff, someone else is going to do it. And how can you compete with just a landing page? That's over, you know?
Yeah, it is. And it's Yeah, and like definitely the frustration, but even with all that, the blocks and all, and people either not believing or not want to believing or all that kind of stuff, my belief hasn't changed. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. I've even more belief now than I had 5 years ago about this thing. Because I say, listen, don't listen to me. Look at the stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's great. And I don't think like it's clearly evolving that way, and the stats prove that. And evolution doesn't care for nostalgia or what's the right, television was bad for you back in the day, and now then YouTube was bad for you. Don't be letting, but then YouTube's the great equalizer. Look, it's quite obvious that this is the way forward. What, just on one thing, actually, we've been talking a lot about the Lemur for content creators and podcasters. Where do the listeners fit in?
The listeners will ultimately come in when there's more content on the platform for that will come in time. It's what we're going after first is obviously it's giving people a content creation platform where they can share their voice and talk to people, and then other people who come in as content creators can then listen and engage with them. And we will be going after content as well in terms of people who want to get the word, like the Jamie Carragher podcast is on Limor there now, which is fantastic to have that. But we have the added addition, hopefully now, all going to plan, where Jamie may come on to Limor and do his Q&As there, or do his pre-match reviews, and you can literally have a conversation with Jamie.
That'd be massive.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
And that's just Jamie. So you multiply that by 100 soccer players or MMA stars or scientists or teachers or lecturers, and people will go there to listen to them and then engage with them and then create their own content, and it's a snowball effect with that, so like you have people in the mindset of luminary or there's nothing to listen there. I said, well, not yet. That's not what it is now. That's what we'll grow into. And that's one of the big things which we brought in terms of the evolution of the product. We knew about 2 years ago, maybe more, that we needed to open the ring fence. Previously, in order to be on Lemur, you needed to create, interact, and listen. You had to have the app, which obviously is very limiting to grow. So what we did, we removed the ring fence to listen. So you need the app to create, you need the app to interact, but you don't need the app to listen. So if you're a content creator and you have 1 million followers on Instagram, you can create on Lemur and instantly share the swipe up, and 1 million people can instantly listen to that cast. But you still get the listens on your Lemur profile. The metrics obviously aren't the same when it's at the web side of it. You want them to follow you on Lemur, but it opens the gate for people to invite them in, nice. Which is a huge thing. So it's an evolution, and it'll always be evolving. But as I said, we're in a very exciting position. And I'm talking about the growth. Like, we had our best month as well between February and March. We were over 900% growth across all interactions, which is phenomenal, So
it's amazing. It's almost like, talk about conspiracy. It's like the news is. It seems like it's way worse than in real life when I'm talking to people. Things are obviously, big things are tough for a lot of people, but still there's a lot of positivity out there. This is the kind of time of the podcast where Mark breaks out his quick fire questions. But I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you while we've got your ear and the ear of our listeners. Let's say that somebody in Silicon Valley saw this idea and they said, listen, Shane, here's $1 billion. That's great. We'll take that off your hands or whatever. I don't know if you'd even take that money, but let's say that you were going to do something. You've signed a non-compete agreement, so you have to go into something else. Where would you spend your time now? Where's the opportunities, do you think, for a technology business or any type of business? Where would you say, for the listeners out there, where the kind of green fields are?
That's a very difficult question. That's kind of, my focus has been entirely in this area. Definitely. Oh God. I think payments. Payments around the voice commerce, definitely 100%. Because I've had a few ideas. It's on those lines, but in that domain, because it's just tying. I think you leave a seed with you in regards to the voice commerce side of stuff. You'll come up with a few ideas yourself potentially, or people listening. But that would be one. I think online software as a service, doesn't matter what business it is. If you can make it easier for people to build an online business after what's happened now, there's a massive opportunity there too. You know,
it's funny to say about the payments stuff like that, because I love those businesses as well. Me and Mark have talked to them about them loads of times, where you're making a transaction as easy as possible, and then you just get like a little bit of it. So there's no boxing up something and shipping it out. It might break on the way. All those kind of headaches. Do you know that kind of way? So
yeah,
I think it's something that people could
really interesting. It's really interesting. And in the last one, my brother is big into, he's playing the stocks, but not actually playing them. You know, like he's playing online poker without real money.
Yeah.
But, one that he's and I've always been fascinated, maybe because I was a big fan of Goldfinger back in the day, but gold, you know, like before this thing happened, like people were predicting for quite, like, you need to get out of fiat currency and into precious metals and gold, and something around making it easier for people to access that, because it's very similar to podcasting. It's not easy to get involved. How you go to anyone on the street, how do you get involved in buying gold?
Yeah, no idea. I have, you know, I couldn't even know where to start. I know you could get on, you know, to your app or investing app and stuff like that, but where would you actually? I know there's lots of places that they'll go buy your gold from you for a knockdown price.
Money for gold.
Money for gold.
Yeah.
But they must be selling it somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
But they're all closed now, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I think one of my cousins was going to open one there in Dunleary, but it never took off. I don't know why. But it was something dodgy. Anyway, okay, Mark, do you have a couple of quick fire questions here for Shane? I want to be respectful of his time. We're almost on an hour here.
Okay, but this is a standard question that we ask. They may be technically competitors, but what's your favorite social media apart from Limor?
Instagram.
And why?
I'm ironically quite a visual person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an art, you know, like I like painting and I like appreciating art, and I say Instagram, YouTube, again, they're very, very similar, because YouTube's great too, but I'll be on Instagram more than I'd be on YouTube. And because, and this is a huge thing as well, I love the rabbit hole philosophy of YouTube and Instagram, where you can continually find related content. Oh, that's cool, check that. And that's what Limor will be providing as well, which we didn't even touch on, is discoverability. To have that, oh, you listen to that, oh, why don't you listen to this? Oh, you follow the SharkPod, why don't you follow this one here, and so on and so forth. Oh, you like that conversation, why don't you join this conversation? So I love that about it, you know. And you can find anything.
Bad job on that, I think, with the Spotify don't do a great job with the, because I'm always looking for new podcasts, you know, and the ones that they suggest, I'm like, you know, they are irrelevant, and you know, if you search something like a keyword, it seems very old school, you know.
Well, it ties into they're working with an old school methodology and product, and you know, converting all those RSS feeds over, and yeah, discoverability is very, very poor, and that's what's one of the key focuses for us, and that's something I'm very excited for, to be able to expand people's reach in finding cool content, and then introduce them to creating their own as well. So
is it what you know or who you know?
This is kind of like, you a fan of Star Wars?
Not a huge fan.
See, that's Starfader there behind me on the wall.
I noticed that artwork. That's an artist that I follow on Instagram, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Craig Davison.
Yeah, super. Yeah. Jeez, I can't believe anyone else knew him over here in Ireland. Is he an English fella?
Yeah, he's English. He's a legend, actually. I met him. That's an original. But he's great guy. But the reason I bring up the Star Wars, he did that series of the Star Wars ones, you know. But I'm a big fan. But the Sith deal in absolutes, yes or no? and there's no in between. But there's no. It's not a yes. Who or what in this. This one, it's a bit of both. Definitely network, without a doubt. If you don't have a network, you're not going to succeed. End of. But the problem is, if you don't have the ability when you walk through that door, you'll lose your network very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And if you're relying on your network alone, there's only so far you'll go.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer on that one.
Yeah, no, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer or one or the other there, but it sparks a conversation and a bit of a thought process around it. And that makes sense. What age do you plan to retire?
What's that word mean?
Good man.
Interesting one, because I kind of had one of the podcasts we did recently was just me and Mark, and I was like, cause a lot of people we ask this, they say I'd never retire, I'm going to I'm excited about what I do, all that type of stuff. But for me, retirement just means that you are able to do what you want when you want to do it, rather than being, just staying in bed until 12 every day. Do you know that? So at what age would you like to be in a position where you got to always choose what you want to do at that time?
5 years ago.
Yeah. Like, Shane, you're like me. I do it tomorrow. I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Because it is. I genuinely I love what I'm doing. And I do see the top of the mountain, and it's something to strive for. And whatever happens, what I've, as I said, the network and the experience I've garnered from this, and that's very important for everyone. You have to have a goal. Doesn't matter, and that's why they say the people who retire die within a certain period of time who actually retire, because they've nothing to live for. And if you enjoy it, and that's same old cliches, but they're cliches for a reason, because the majority of them are true. Is you have to have that passion and a reason to get out of bed, and I love doing this. And it's you see these people, those people, they work so hard, and how do they work so hard? And one, they have a passion for it as well. And when you're really busy, it's easier to work harder, if you understand what I mean, because you've no choice and you do it, and it's tied into that passion. And because you see The Rock there, the shit, it's like, how does he fucking even?
I don't understand what.
You don't understand. But you look at what he's doing. He's involved. He obviously loves what he's doing, but he's at the top of his game. He has the responsibility to deliver on this shit. So he has no choice but to work that hard, because there's the added pressure of succeeding around it. But he loves it. It's a connect the dots situation. So
I think if the passion outweighs the resistance, that's probably a good thing. We always need a bit of resistance. Yes. What do you do to wind down, to relax?
What do I do? I love movies. I love film. I love TV series, that kind of stuff. Painting as well. I haven't painted one thing since this lockdown started, because I've just been on the computer or on my phone all the time. And then when I do it, you're kind of, because you do need a bit of energy to do the painting. And I said, I'll just watch a movie or watch TV to switch off here and go into a different realm. One thing I do like as well, the nerd side of me, is that I'm already talking about Star Wars, and I'll talk about another nerdy one as well, is Warhammer 40,000. The little toy soldiers, painting toy soldiers. The Games Workshop. Penny Bridges is that.
Mindfulness there while you're doing that. I'd say it's a very Zen thing. It's almost like a practice to do that.
It is. It's actually, I would advise anyone to do it, because the sense of accomplishment you get out of building them, they're little models, you have to build them, and then you have to paint them, and you build it, and as you're building your army, it's kind of like your network for your business. You're building them out, and I take too long on them. I'm trying to be too precise, and I try to be like the professional painters on Instagram that I look at and says, oh no, I didn't get the eye right. But you may check out Henry Cavill, Superman. So he did a post on his Instagram last week or the week before of him painting one of the Warhammer. He said, right, the cat's out of the bag. I am officially a nerd. I've loved Warhammer since I was a kid. And I finally have a chance to do it now I'm in isolation, So I do that. And there's the whole thing with that as well is there's a whole lore and history, and there's books like the New York best-selling books. So I dive into those science fiction books as well. And you can transfer the characters you read about in the books into actual miniatures, and it's very nerdy, I know, but I love it. And there's actually, if I was to explain it to anyone, it's essentially Game of Thrones in space. That's what it is. So and no one knew about Game of Thrones, but now that's mainstream, and it was cool onto the last series. But mark my words, there'll be a live series to do a Warhammer 40,000 in the next few years. So that might be an industry I'll get into the next one, something to do with that,
I'll definitely look that one up. Right, two more, right? If you could advise someone to learn one skill, what would it be? Maybe an 18-year-old Shane.
Conversation.
Do you want to elaborate on
that? To be able to talk to someone and learn about them and express who you are, because that helps you build relationships. Like what you're doing now. Imagine you were hosting a podcast and you couldn't talk to someone.
It's amazing. Like so many people, especially in this space that we're talking to, business people, communication keeps coming up over and over again.
That's the answer to that question.
Yeah, it's something that's very, and it's, to be honest, it's not really taught or anything, or and anything in school. It's kind of like you're told to shut up most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know how do you learn that? How do you instill that in a 15, 16-year-old?
I would suggest getting them to put themselves out there on something, or some sort of, whatever, getting people to mix in different groups. Because when I was growing up, I basically spoke to the same probably 10 people for 15 years. Like other, not exactly, but you know what I mean? Like it was a very small bubble. Like, so I think by, talk to different groups, having different interests, I think it can be something developed for sure.
It's one thing that we as a nation and as a people have a massive advantage at. It is one of the strongest assets we have, is the ability to talk and converse and be nosy and get information out of people. And when you look at, coming back to that mentality, and we don't realize what we have when we're in Ireland, because you're in the small community and everyone generally has those skills. But when you go abroad, like you look at how successful Irish people are when they leave Ireland.
Yeah,
why is that? They're like, what is it? One of them is the fact that we can converse. That's a huge
gift of the gab.
Gift, and it's so true. And
in Canada, it's amazing. Like the difference between, like when you because I moved there, I kind of advertised so much that a lot of my friends moved over to Vancouver afterwards, and it was the same thing. The Canadians there, they're missing something when it comes to the conversation with, being that lightheartedness, the nice to be around, nice to talk to. It was all very structured. They all, it's almost like you can kind of see what they're trying to get out of this all the time. And I think Irish people do a good job of trying to get out of it. Just talking shit,
and abusing people, but I'm still coming across nice. Oh, will you relax? It's just a bit of crack. Come on, relax. Exactly. And that's definitely huge. And of course, there's the other side of it as well. Traditionally, we're hard workers as well, and are willing to that drop tools at 5 o'clock mentality really, really annoys me. You're in the middle of a job. Oh, jeez, I'm finished. It's 5 o'clock. Time to go home.
Yeah, it's like Flintstone sliding down the Brontosaurus here.
Yeah, exactly. It says no, and I think Irish people can be. You hear that this generation is this and this generation is that, but it's kind of the younger generation, as you said. I sound like a fossil saying that, but 15 to 18, who were brought up in the social media era and glued to their screens and stuff like that. I think putting that down, I find myself, it's difficult for me because I'm on the phone all the time because it's my business and stuff like that. And some days I'm kind of like, I need to stop looking at the screen so much, But I think I've been okay in terms of I've done all right in the conversation stuff. I'm beyond that, but for younger people, definitely get involved in conversation and sport.
Cool. Last one. Is there one book that's had a big impact on you in your life?
Other than Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
Galaxy domination.
It's a big topic.
It is. There's one book that always comes to mind, and it wasn't a novel per se or anything. The great Ollie Campbell, who you may have heard of, former Irish and British and Irish Lions number 10. And Ollie, when I was coming up through the ranks in the Leinster Academy, gave me some advice. I met him quite a few times through my dad and stuff like that. Great man. And he told me about this book called Dare to Fail. And it's essentially a book with little snippets. They're only a page or half a page on each person of some of the most successful people in history and the amount of times they failed before they actually succeeded. And it's a fascinating read. It's like a toilet read, you pick it up, or a coffee table or something like that. But it's an amazing book. And if you're in business, doesn't matter, you don't need to be in business. If you're in professional sport, if you're in business, if you're, whatever the case may be, if you're on the podcast, it is amazing read, because it said, like, in terms of confidence, Jesus, this fella, Abraham Lincoln, he failed at all these jobs before he became president and abolished slavery. You know what I mean? All these, and Alexander Graham Bell, and the amount of failures for
Walt Disney,
all of them. And it's that trait, like you're saying there about the conversation. The rules don't change, and one of them is that never give up mentality and stubbornness and persistence to succeed, and having that thick skin, and all these rules and that are there. It's a great, and as I said, it's not a novel. It's not intimidating. You can pick it up and put it down and keep going. So it's a great one. I can't think of the name. I always forget the name of the author, but Dare to Fail is what it's called.
Cool. It sounds like it's a great book for people to listen to as well. I had this thought once, and sometimes this happens, Shane, where I think it's an original thought, and then later on it's some sort of marketing campaign that got in there. We talked about a famous one in one of the earlier podcasts where I thought I came up with something, but it was actually an Apple slogan. Doesn't matter.
Genius.
Yeah. Anyway, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, I forget where I was. I think I was driving through Bray, and I was just thinking to myself, only the wins stick. Only the wins count. They're the ones that people remember. No one ever introduced Katie Taylor as here's Olympic loser Katie Taylor. No one ever says that. That doesn't matter. Everything else just falls away. So if we can keep that mentality, because in Ireland we're not really great at the risk taking. I know until recently the bankruptcy laws were 12 years.
That's what you get.
Yeah, you tried to hire people. Get back in your box,
On that point, though, it's only the wins. But what do? They want to break down what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
As much as they just care about the wins, they want to know, well, what does it take? And it's failure, essentially, and strife, because you learn more from your defeats than you do from your wins, and that's just the way it is. But you don't understand that until you go through them. Yeah. And I think that's another very important thing as well in regards to the ideas. Why didn't I think of that? Or you can be guaranteed someone has thought of every product that's ever been made in the world, has thought of it. But the difference is the people who actually do it. That's the difference.
The doers.
The doers.
And we hope the guys out there in SharkNation are listening to this. They're the nation of doers. That's what we're trying to cultivate here in the tribe.
Yeah.
Shane, it was a unbelievable conversation with you today. Had a great time. We couldn't be more supportive if we tried. We'd love to see this just blow up. I can't stress enough how big this opportunity is, especially when I really understood what the business was. So all the best in the future for this. Hopefully we'll be when you when you when you sell it to Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, when he kind of comes in and tries to muscle you out, hopefully he'll come back on the SharkPod and tell us all about that as well, right?
Oh no, it'll be an absolute pleasure. And again, just if you don't mind me doing a cheap plug to all of your listeners, I'd love you all to come and join the Limor Conspiracy. You can download it from the App Store or Google Play for free. Set up a profile and instantly start creating your sonic identity. We've all our, Limor, LIMOR.ie, our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. And of course, I'd love to have the SharkPod on there, and hopefully we could do a reversal. I said the podcast community have you on Mono y Mono, my own traditional podcast at some stage.
Absolutely.
Go from there would be good crack,
Yeah.
Great.
Sounds good.
Well, I'll talk to you soon, and all the best of luck. And we'll end it there. Perfect.
There you go, guys.
We're in there.
That was brilliant, Shane. Thanks very